think many of us are all on the same page that dancers are athletes and that our nutritional needs really reflect that. So there's not as much difference between what dancers need nutritionally versus other athletes or in comparison to other athletes.
Hey everybody, welcome to Unchoreographed. I'm your host, Dr. Jenna Lower, and today I am joined by nutritionist and professional dancer, Melissa Lineburg. I am a huge fan of Melissa's. I'm regularly referring my own dancers to her, so I'm really excited to have her with us today. So welcome, Melissa. Thank you so much for being here with me.
Yay! Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be here and chat all about dance nutrition.
Absolutely. And I know that we could talk about it forever. So, but let's not waste any time. Let's just dive right in. Why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Yes, absolutely. So, like Jenna said, my name is Melissa. I am a professional ballet dancer. I'm also a licensed dietitian nutritionist. I have a master's of science degree in human nutrition from the University of Bridgeport. I'm a certified nutrition specialist. I have over 1,000 supervised clinical hours working in nutrition. I opened my practice about 3 years ago. And of course, there's a siren going by right now. But all of that
Can't
is
even hear
just
it.
a lot. Okay, great. All of that is just a lot of verbiage to let you all know that I know dance and I know nutrition. So that is what I specialize in, working with dancers, supporting them nutritionally towards empowering their performance in the studio, on stage, and beyond.
Amazing. Love it. Love it. Okay. So yeah, I think, we're both dance medicine specialists, and I think what we're both really passionate about is creating like sustainability in our dancers. So I think probably the same in nutrition as it is in PT. There's like things that are sort of quote unquote the quick fix things of like, okay, what do we do like right now in the moment versus like, what do we do long term? And I know we've had this discussion even in the past before. So today I want to focus a little bit more on talking about like the sustainability side of things because I think that that's where a lot of dancers, at least in my field where I see a lot of dancers struggle with is the sustainability part. I don't know, would you agree on your end?
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I think too, part of that kind of intertwined at the same time is our desire for quick fixes, for like instant gratification, essentially. And when it comes to whether it's physical therapy for injury prevention, or it's nutrition for injury prevention and recovery, it is consistency over time with the habits that work best for you to keep us going. So I know my clients are so sick and tired of hearing me say consistency. We just need to be consistent over time, but it is not one meal, one day, even a couple of days back to back of quote unquote bad eating or eating as healthfully as possible that's going to fix or negate any of your performance gains. And that's gains with a Z for sure.
I love it.
So yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, well, I feel like I am right there with you. I think my patients also are sick of hearing me say consistency is key.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
it's true. I mean, it's so true for, I mean, beyond just what we're talking about. It's anything, right? What would you say, what are the biggest differences do you find in working with dancers in this like specialized population versus working in like the traditional athletic setting?
Yeah, really, really great question. And I think many of us are all on the same page that dancers are athletes and that our nutritional needs really reflect that. So there's not as much difference between what dancers need nutritionally versus other athletes or in comparison to other athletes. Dance has just, the highest demands in our day-to-day training. That's classes, that's rehearsals, that's performances, both, physically, mentally, artistically, all of that is an incredibly high demand and essentially a high stress on our body that we're experiencing day in and day out. Um, I think what's really interesting is that it seems to be completely accepted that athletes come in all shapes and sizes, regardless of their sport. And I think that's something that is starting to permeate through the dance world, specifically the ballet world, a little bit more. So there is no one specific look for a dancer, and just as there's no one specific look for an athlete. When we talk about sports and athletes as well, there are how many different sports out there and just how different are all of those athletes, right? And what is it that they all need to be the best in their sport? So I think all of these things are things just for us to keep in mind, regardless of how challenging it might be when we're like, dance is so special and blah.
Yeah.
It is. It totally is. Yes. And we're not all that different from, the nutritional needs of what we think of like sports nutrition or athletic nutrition. So the nutritional foundations are all still there. We need to be sure that we're meeting our daily energy demands. Eating enough food is what that means, with, a good macro balance that keeps us going, eating the rainbow, like all of my dance nutrition core concepts that I'm constantly talking about all of the time.
Yeah. Oh gosh, absolutely. Yeah, I think it is really interesting that like it is becoming more widely accepted to refer to dancers as athletes, artistic athletes. We hear that a lot in the dance medicine field now. I think that that's the term a lot of people are really adopting, which I love. But yeah, it's still, I feel like I don't know that dancers are 100% on board with that sometimes. Sometimes I feel like I don't know. I don't know if they view themselves the same way as they view athletes. I don't know what your experience is with that, but I do find that a lot of like my dancers that come in here, once I explain it to them and they're like, oh, well, yeah, we do need plyometrics. And oh, yeah, we do, whatever it is. And then they're like, well, yeah, of course we're athletes. But for some reason, I feel like when you first just say it, they're like, no, we're artists.
Right.
Which,
Right.
yes, is true. That is very
Mhm.
true. But yeah, I mean, we do have to treat them the same. So I
Yeah.
love that. I think
Yeah.
yeah, that's great. So what would you say? Because I think that, you know, nutrition as fuel and fueling your body is really important. So what would you say are some of the signs that a dancer might be under fueling and not getting what they need?
Yeah, totally. So some of the regular symptoms that we always hear as far as underfueling is like persistent fatigue, being tired, not sleeping super well throughout the night, frequent injury. So whether that's small injuries or major like muscle soreness that just doesn't seem to go away, delayed recovery. So even, the next day after a tough rehearsal, you're like still dragging, like, what is it that, or how is it that you're recovering to really fuel and super recover for the next day. For our female dancers out there, irregular or absent periods is really, really major, and something to keep an eye on. I was just talking with a dancer about that the other day, and it was really interesting that I had done a nutrient analysis on like a 1 day food log. And I was like, wow, there's like, we could maybe, look at your fat intake. We really need to be sure you're getting an adequate amount of fat in your diet. And she's like, oh, well, like I haven't really had a period in a little while. I was like, yeah, that's that's like number one. We really need to focus on that. So what's really fascinating is things that like that persistent fatigue, or we talk about like brain fog, like inability to really focus or remember choreography or pick it up really quickly. Oftentimes, it's difficult to realize that's a symptom that you're experiencing until it clears up. And then you're like, oh my gosh, I was like in such a fog, or I didn't realize just how tired I was for those 3 weeks during, performance, like if a performance season is like 3 weeks long, something like that. So, the like actionable thing behind that is just ensuring that you're maintaining the schedule of consistent eating that is best for you, especially when your dance schedule is extra heavy or super, super intense. That's usually when the time or a time frequently where we become disconnected from our hunger cues because our stress levels are a little bit higher. We're being super physically active. That's like naturally happens. And we need to be proactive about that. So adding more snacks into your day, any kind of, take 5 minute break, like have maybe it's half of your bar then and half of your bar at another 5 minute break. Maybe it's a whole bar then, a whole bar later, just to be sure that we're really eating consistently about every 3 to 4 hours at least throughout the day. And then also just that nutrient density of your snack. So I was talking about this with the dancer the other day where I was like, well, this breakfast is looking really good. Have you added a scoop of nut butter? Like I always say nut butter because people, I don't like peanut butter. Some people are allergic to it, like
What?
different things.
You don't
So
like peanut butter?
I know, but I'm an almond butter. I'm a sunflower seed butter gal. So like, but I'm like, what? Just
Okay,
add
okay.
that. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So just, add a scoop of that nut butter into your oatmeal or your yogurt bowl or on top of your pancake or whatever. Just add a little something or adding some dates in with any of your snack bars. That's a really great nutrient dense snack that
Oh
you can be
yeah.
having throughout the day. I actually I don't know why I personally just started doing this, but adding protein powder into your oatmeal is like game
Yes.
changer. So do it, do it, do it. And of course, any
Yeah.
shakes or smoothies that you might be making. So there's just like a couple of actionable things that you can work to like boost your nutrient intake, the energy intake that you're having throughout the day. And then I think, I mentioned a couple of physical symptoms that we tend to experience and maybe not even realize that we're experiencing
Yeah. That's
when
super
that's
helpful for
happening.
me to even hear too, because like again, I very briefly screen my dancers
Hmm.
if for like I screen for things like reds and like nutritional issues or different things, but it's very brief and it's just I'm kind of looking for like the red flags of like
Hmm.
what do I need to refer to, but I don't usually ask about like brain fog, and that's great.
Hmm.
I'm gonna put that into my into my
Yeah.
questionnaires because that is an important one.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, oftentimes it's difficult to realize that you're experiencing brain fog until it clears up. So
Yeah.
that, it might be like, well, how is your focus in class? Are you able to pick up those combinations as quickly as your teacher requires you? What about picking up choreography like that? Those might be the more tangible aspects where a dancer could be like,
Yeah.
oh, that could be better, you know?
Yeah. Well, yeah, good things for dancers to kind of just like keep in the back of their minds though, so that they know like
Hmm.
what possible symptoms even are.
Yes,
I am
exactly.
shocked every time a dancer tells me that they don't have a regular period, and I'm like, that's not normal. And like
Hmm.
they just take it as normal. Like
Hmm.
it blows my mind that they just take that as normal. That their parent maybe hasn't thought that that's not normal, or maybe
Hmm.
they've told a medical professional. Like it just blows my mind that we're not
Hmm.
like staying on top of these dancers, female athletes in general.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that we need to pay way more attention to to it.
Yeah, yeah, I do want to like be super, super clear that missing periods is not normal. It might be common. Those are two very different things. Common does not mean it is good or bad. It is common. Normal is where
Mhm.
we need to be as far as dancers and our health goes so that we can have that longevity. As I was talking with a group of pre-professional dancers the other week, like how long is it that you all want to be dancing? Is it into your late 20s, 30s, 40s, like do you want to be dancing that long? Then you need to, like this needs to be addressed now in your late teens, early 20s. So yeah, and especially when it comes to reds, like you said, the relative energy deficiency in sport, definitely want to be sure that we're catching this as early as possible.
Yeah. I mean, we could literally have an entire podcast episode just on that, which we
Yes.
probably should. We'll make a note of that for the future. But yeah, no, I think it's so important. I'm curious too, as you're saying, like giving, some recommendations to your dancers and things. Do you ever find that your dancers give you like pushback on it? Like feeling like, oh, that's too much for me or too many calories or, some of these myths that we know that dancers hear. Like, do you find that they give you any pushback or
Only occasionally from the dancers. Like I wouldn't say it's a whole lot. I also am incredibly mindful of the language that I use with my dancer
yeah.
clients. So I'm not going to be somebody who is simply like, you need to eat more and then move on with my life. Like, no, no, no. That's terrifying for a dancer to hear. So like how is it that I approach the topic, or how is it that we simply integrate it into their nutritional protocol via action items? So those slow, consistent, sustainable shifts that we make in our food and nutrition habits and behaviors to really help to increase that energy intake for the dancer. I think where I get more pushback is from dance studio owners and directors, in that it's an educational component that might be missing. It's also a lived experience, which I completely understand from my own lived experience growing up in classical ballet, especially. So I think that might be where I get a little bit more pushback. Neither good nor bad, just I know there's space for education and that I want to care and bring that, those people along this journey with me. So,
Yeah.
mhm.
Yeah, I can totally understand that. I mean, it's the same in the PT world that, no pain, no gain, like
Right.
that whole idea, right? So, yeah, I'd say I actually find it's exactly the same for me that I get more pushback from um, the studios or the teachers. The newer like I think as the new generation is coming in,
Mhm.
um I see the change happening. It's just slow, slower than we want it to be, I think.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's a tough thing. It's like we're going up against years of tradition.
Mhm. Mhm.
But at what point are we like, okay, we have new science. I mean,
Yeah.
we can only there's a way to keep tradition but still modernize what we're doing. So,
Yep. Yeah, and the research has been out there for sports and athletics for how long? And we've just now come to the common understanding that dancers are athletes. So it's merging these concepts, which is probably the yield. Nobody wants to yield.
I
So
know, right?
yeah.
It's getting there. We're getting there.
Yeah, yeah, we're getting there for sure.
Oh, well, that's good. Um, do you find, so I know one of the difficulties, and again, I know language is really, we have to be really mindful of language that we're using talking to our dancers, I guess, or any young athlete, really.
Hmm.
But with dance, there is this aesthetic component, right? There has historically been an aesthetic component. And like you mentioned, I think that luckily it seems to be changing a bit slowly, but it's changing. But with that, like, how do you or do you even broach that subject of balancing nutritional need with aesthetics? Or do you really encourage your dancers to not pay attention to their aesthetics when sometimes that might be really important to them? Are you just educating them on, how do you approach it?
Yeah, yeah, a lot of that is first and foremost grounded in education. Like, what is it that food is? What is it that it does for us? Why is it all important for dancers? So once we get that kind of out of the way, just also realizing for myself, I am an all foods fit licensed nutritionist. I am a all bodies can dance licensed nutritionist. So there is no one ideal body type when it comes to dancing. When I do have to kind of broach this topic when it comes to like studio management, I encourage the directors there to really think that, the future that you are envisioning for this particular dancer might look different than what that dancer wants, where they will fit in the professional dance world or otherwise, right? Any aspect of the dance world. And so I really just try to gently kind of coax that idea. I don't know if that answers your question, Jenna, but
Yeah,
that's,
no, absolutely. Well, I
yeah,
think
yeah,
they're
yeah,
they're
yeah.
hard conversations to have because
Absolutely.
again, it's
Yep.
kind of that same idea of like sometimes you are going up against years of tradition. And
Hmm.
it's like
Hmm.
because I kind of feel the same sometimes. It's like me as one person, even though it's not. It
Hmm.
just feels like that sometimes of like trying to change this entire culture of maybe a
Yeah.
studio that you're working with or whatever. Um,
Yeah.
they're tough conversations,
Hmm.
especially when
It
it.
might, go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say it might actually help me sharing a personal story where I fit in and my experience, my lived experience with this particular
Yeah,
conversation.
please.
So I trained at very much a strictly like American style ballet pre-professional training program when I was in high school. I loved dancing there. My director had a body type in her brain, and if you did not fit that body type, you were never going to dance professionally. She told me that. For your listeners and your viewers, I am 5'11". I am at a healthy weight. I don't weigh myself regularly, but I know I'm at a healthy weight for myself. And because I was told at such a young age that I would never dance professionally, I pretty much was like, then I'm going to do it. I'm essentially maybe a curse word or two in there, but I was essentially like, because you said that I cannot, I will. And I have, I've been dancing professionally. I will date myself since 2011. So that's what, 13 years dancing professionally. It is possible. My professional trajectory has looked very different, very much non-conventional compared to other dancers that I trained with growing up, and other professional dancers that I know today. So each of us have our own unique path there, and it might look a little different than the next person's. So maybe that's some help with that as well, or
Yeah,
insight for that.
absolutely. I think that that's really important. I think it's important for dancers to hear from not only other dancers who have done it, but now are coaching dancers in like how do you make this sustainable? So I think that's
Mm-hmm.
awesome, awesome advice
Mm-hmm.
and a good story for our dancers to hear.
Yeah.
Do you have any advice for dancers? So if they are stuck in a place, because again, I think there are definitely, it's becoming more common that we're seeing studios and companies that are taking wellness in much more seriously now. But if they
Mm-hmm.
are stuck in maybe a place where the culture is a bit more, I'm going to use the term toxic,
Mm-hmm.
um, do you have any advice for dancers in that environment for what they can do? Because, you can only control so much of your environment, but you
Mm-hmm.
can still make an impact. So like what could a dancer do for themselves if they're in that environment?
Yeah, yes. So one of my Empower Performance principles is that you know your body best. So allow that to really guide you and lead you in these spaces. It takes privilege for a dancer to be able to leave a studio and find one that really fits a lot better within their, outlook, perspective, whatever. So changing studios is not always an option for everybody. So in those instances, figure out what it is that you can control. So your self-care outside of the studio, knowing that you are fueling your body with a balanced, optimal diet that works best for you, essentially kind of bucking the system of what you're being told constantly in the studio, and just knowing that the perfect dancer body does not exist, or it exists in many shapes and sizes. So yeah, work with any other licensed health professionals. Any dance medicine specialist is definitely going to be incredibly helpful, whether it's nutrition, physical therapy, a mental health therapist, any other supportive peers. More than likely, dancers will be able to get their parents on their support wagon. So that certainly is very, very, very beneficial. And of course, if you are feeling particularly inspired, you can always do an intro between your studio owner and that licensed professional that you are working with. So that the proper education can come in from a professional who has that experience, that education, that knowledge, that ability to begin that conversation of change in your studio. So you could be the tool for change, and or you can just stay your lane and know what works best for you and just keep going through, kind of a couple different options in there.
Yeah, I think that is such good advice because it's tough. I feel for these dancers that
Hmm.
recognize that it's not an optimal environment,
Hmm.
um, but that are willing to take that on and like you said, kind of stay in their lane and understand their own body because that's not an easy
Hmm.
thing to do, especially in the younger populations. I think once you've been in it for a little while, you probably are a little bit more confident and comfortable saying or standing
Hmm.
up for yourself and saying things. But some of these young girls, it's a tough thing.
Hmm.
And I'm
Yeah.
sure their nutritionist, physical therapist, whoever it is, I'm telling you, they're more than willing to be your advocate.
Yes.
I always tell the dancer, I'm like, blame it
110%.
on me. I will be the bad guy. It's
Hmm.
my fault.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. I am happy to be the bad guy in these
Yes.
instances.
A
Yeah.
100%, a hundred
Hmm.
percent. Oh my goodness, I know. So,
Hmm.
well, I feel like you've already given us lots of actionable things that dancers can do. But if there is any takeaway that you want dancers to hear from this, like what is, if you can narrow it down to one or two tips, what is something that you really want dancers to understand and walk away from this knowing?
Yeah, so I think what drove this particular action item that I was thinking about heading into our conversation today is that we are Nutcracker season, competition season is right around the corner. So find your best and most delicious bag stable snacks and restock your supply every night or every morning, depending on when it is that you pack your dance bag. My personal go-to right now, I'll just drop what I'm going like relying on myself, is either an RX bar. I love they have a blueberry flavor that it's so good. And
Delicious.
then the other option that I'm well stocked on is the Nature Valley almond butter sandwich bars. So it's not the crumbly oats and honey. It has a little bit of nut butter in there and it's perfect. It's a delicious energy boost pre or post class or rehearsal just to like keep me going and energized. So have your best, most delicious bag stable snacks always on hand.
That is such a good tip. I love that tip.
Thanks.
I get like a lot of the girls come in to see me after they've had like a full day of rehearsal. And I can just tell them, like, have you had anything to eat? Like, they sometimes don't even think to like eat before they, like, when they're done and before they come in to see me. So I
Mhm.
love just having it ready. Have your stuff
Yeah.
ready.
Yeah.
Such a good
And
tip.
if there are any dance teachers or other dance medicine specialists listening or watching, have a box of something available in your office or in your studio just on hand. I'm very aware of food allergies, food sensitivities. I totally understand you cannot make everybody happy, but having something available also just shows us that you understand, you care that these dancers have wild schedules and, incredibly busy dance schedules. So just kind of like you can also have something available at your studio or in your office,
Yeah, I'm
for your
already like, oh my
dancers.
gosh, I'm going to Walmart after this.
Yeah.
Because I don't, but what a, like such a simple thing. I've got like water bottles, so I'm just gonna stick some bars there with the water bottles. I love it. That's a great tip for me.
Yay.
I always learn so much when I talk to you.
Oh, yay. Oh my gosh, yay.
Awesome. Well, I think this was such an important conversation for our dancers to hear. So I'm so thankful that you were here to do this. So Melissa, tell everybody what is the best place that they can find you, reach you. We'll put it all in the show notes, but where can they find you?
Awesome. So my practice is called Performance Nutrition. My website is Empower Dance Nutrition. I'm most active on Instagram at empower_performance, and I reshare things on TikTok. So, but I'm Empower Dance Performance on TikTok. I do have a free weekly e-newsletter called The Extra Scoop. So you get, tips, research articles, my thoughts on that. You also get, some menu, meal, and snack ideas every single week. So feel free to sign up for that. Completely free right to your inbox, which is really fun. And I think that's
I
all the
can
ways you
vouch for
can
it. It's
contact
really
me.
good. I get it and I read
Thanks.
it and I love it. It's so good. You've got so many it's like it's a free resource and there's so much in there. So yeah, I would
Mhm.
strongly encourage you to sign up for it, dancers.
Yay. Yeah.
Can I also, I think I saw that you have did you release a new course?
I did.
Tell us really
Yes.
quickly about that course because I think this is a great idea.
Yeah, yes. So my first ever self-paced online dance nutrition program is called the Dancer's Edge, helping you to find and walking you dancers through these ways to figure out your foundation nutrition, creating action items, figuring out what that baseline looks like for you to maintain as you are right now, day to day. And then in addition to that, you get access to a tailored nutrition protocol. So right now I have nutrition for energy and stamina available, as well as nutrition for muscle health. So whichever route your goals might best align with, you can pick one or the other at this time. And you'll get all of that educational component walking you through creating your own action items, having the patience, the grace, that time that you need to figure out your nutritional baseline, and then be able to incorporate the components of your tailored nutrition protocol to continue working towards your goals.
That's amazing. I'm so excited for you that you released that. I think this is such a
Thanks.
good solution for dancers. So I will definitely put the information in the show notes for people if they are interested in learning more. Lastly, I just have a quick question for you too. In it, because I actually don't think I know how it works with nutrition. You know, as a physical therapist, I can't work out of state lines for
Mhm.
physical therapy. Can you, as a nutritionist, so if we have a dancer listening on the other side of the country, can they contact you to work with you?
Yes, absolutely. So I am kind of similar to physical therapy. My licensure is regulated state by state. So nationally, I am a nutrition coach. When it comes to medical nutrition therapy, I am licensed in the state of Maryland as well as the
Mm,
District of Columbia for medical nutrition
okay.
therapy. That's a more focused avenue that I have access to with my licensure. But as far as a dance nutritionist, a dance nutrition coach, I'm your gal nationwide.
Perfect. Yes. She
Yep.
is. She really is your gal. I will continue to refer all my dancers your way. I think you're wonderful and you
Yep.
do
Thank
really
you.
important work with these dancers. So thank you so much for chatting with us. I'm sure we'll have to do this again soon.
Awesome.
Maybe
Thank
we'll
you
do
so
that
much for
Reds
having me.
episode.
Yes, yes. Noted.
All
Noted.
right. Perfect. All right. All right. Well, thank you, Melissa, and we'll talk soon.
Yay. Thank you.